Imagine if one day you found a door that was connected to another world, and any items or skills you acquired could be brought back to the real world. The story begins with a girl being harassed by some men, but then we meet Yuya, a boy who tries to stand up to them, but the men call him fat and ugly and end up beating him up. Eventually, the police arrive, and the men flee. The girl thanks him for his help, but Yuya says he is fine and walks away. We learn that he was taught by his grandfather to always be kind and help those in need. When he gets home, we see that his house is covered in graffiti with insult. We learn that since he was young, he has been bullied by everyone. Even his parents treated him poorly because his siblings were considered beautiful, but he was ugly. When he reached middle school, things got worse as he started getting beaten up at school. Only his grandfather looked after him, always reminding him that being kind would make him happy. His grandfather eventually passed away but left his house and all his savings to him. His parents tried to contest the will, but in the end, Yuya was given everything, and his parents completely abandoned him. So, he lives alone and works part-time every day. At school, Yuya is graduating from middle school, but in his yearbook, there are only mean comments about him. When he tries to leave, he is stopped by his bullies, who remind him that even though he is graduating, he is still their errand boy. Yuya says he needs to get to his job, but the bullies beat him up, and we see his brother and sister just watching from a distance. When he finally arrives at his job, his boss is fed up with him always being late and fires him. At home, Yuya has a depressing meal, and when he looks at himself in the mirror, he has a tantrum and smashes the mirror, thinking that nothing will change even after graduation. He punches the wall, and suddenly it opens a hidden room. There are several strange items in the room, and Yuya thinks they must be souvenirs from his grandfather's travels. He finds a peculiar door, and when he opens it, it leads to a strange room. He gets scared when a notification appears. As he reads it, he learns that the door is connected to another world. There are several notifications telling him about various functions available to him, such as the ability to store items and control who can use the door. Although confused by the functions, he thinks the system is like a game, so he decides to check his status. But when he sees it, he is devastated to find that all his stats are very low. He looks around the room, and when he looks outside, he realizes that it really is another world. He finds a note on the table, but at first, he can't read it. However, he acquires a language skill that helps him understand it. He learns that the owner of the house was a great sage, but he was about to die, so he left it to whoever found it, including all its contents. The house is protected by magic, so no one can break in besides the owner. He finds several weapons inside, and as he examines them, he discovers that they are exceptional items and extremely dangerous. He looks outside and tries swinging a sword, but ends up falling over, although he manages to learn a basic sword skill. Thinking it could be useful, Yuya trains with each of the weapons, finding that they are all god-tier items, and he gains a number of skills. Despite this, his stats still remain at level 1, and he wonders how to increase them. He puts the weapons away into his storage, but suddenly a monster attacks. Yuya is terrified but soon realizes that his house is protected. The monster is a level 300 bloody ogre, and it smashes against the magical wall, trying to use a tree to break in, but it doesn't work. Yuya thinks he should try fighting back, so he throws his spear, which goes right through the monster and instantly kills it in one hit. The spear returns to him, and the monster disappears, dropping a number of items. Yuya suddenly reaches level 100, and he is shocked to see his new stats. After allocating all his points, Yuya decides to call it a day. When he tries to leave, a cash-out option appears, converting the monster's items into money. Yuya is confused by this but gladly accepts it. Later that night, Yuya undergoes a change in his body, which completely transforms. When he wakes up, he finds his body is different, and his clothes no longer fit. He is unsure of what is happening, and since his mirror is still broken, he decides to look for some clothes. There are magical clothes in the sage's house that freely adjust in size and provide a range of magical bonuses. Yuya wonders about the identity of the sage and looks around the garden. Suddenly, he is attacked by a level 200 slime monster, but this time Yuya calmly brings out his spear and easily destroys the monster. It drops some coffee slime and even a rare necklace that has the ability to restore his magic power. He levels up again, gaining a presence detection skill, and he is already at level 150. He tries some of the coffee slime and finds it quite good. He decides to use some of the money he has made to buy a new uniform, ordering it to be ready for the start of high school. After that, he spent every day in the other world, and he starts to enjoy himself, even forgetting his depression. He trains and learns as much as possible about the other world. An elite goblin attacks his house, but Yuya has become completely different, skillfully fighting against it and even using a skill to destroy the goblin. Time flies, and the start of high school arrives, and everyone is immediately drawn to him. Even his siblings seem to be in awe. In class, his bullies approach him, but they don't recognize him, thinking he is a transfer student. When he tells them he is Yuya, everyone is shocked and doesn't believe him. When he goes to the bathroom, he is completely shocked to see himself for the first time since his transformation. After class, his brother and sister approach him, wondering what he did to change so drastically, calling him a loser. But suddenly, a limo stops, and the girl he saved is looking for him. He wonders who she is, and she reminds him of how he saved her. Yuya wonders how she knows his name, and she admits that she looked into him because she wanted to thank him, and she introduces herself as Kaori. She asks if he would like to join the Jose Academy, and Yuya recognizes it as an academy for the super elite. We learn that Kaori is on the student council, and her father is the chairman of the academy. Yuya is flattered by the offer but thinks he isn't smart enough to join such a prestigious academy. His brother interrupts, asking to join the academy and saying that they are superior to Yuya in both academics and sports. But Kaori refuses because they are insulting Yuya, who is her hero. She reveals that she has already looked into the family and knows all about their nefarious behavior towards Yuya. She continues by telling Yuya that their academy emphasizes personality, not just academic performance, so it wouldn't be a problem for him to enroll. Her presence suggests showing him the academy, so she pulls him away, and they leave, while his siblings are left in disbelief at what just happened. They arrive at the academy, which is a famous school filled with students who excel. He meets the chairman, Tsukasa, who thanks him for saving his daughter. Yuya says it wasn't a big deal, but Kaori says that he was the only one who helped her. Tsukasa invites him to join the school, even offering to pay his tuition as thanks for helping his daughter, but Yuya hesitates, thinking he won't fit in because only geniuses are normally accepted. Tsukasa says that geniuses are just normal people who have found the right way to work hard and use less time, but Yuya believes they are gifted with talent. Tsukasa tells him that everyone has their own talents, and through challenges and having fun, he will eventually discover what his talents are, saying that he is still young. He suggests Yuya try out the school for a day. A teacher named Sawada enters, and Tsukasa introduces her as a renowned scientist, but her classes are popular and easy to understand. Yuya prepares for his first class, worrying that he might be in over his head, but he thinks that things can't be worse than at normal school. He gets called in and introduces himself, but all the students appear stunned. He worries about what they think of him, but they are actually shocked by how handsome he is. He sits at the back and shares a book with the girl next to him, but she is a bit cold towards him, and he worries that she already hates him. Kaori wonders if Yuya will fit in with his class, and as the class goes on, he actually finds it pretty normal, except that the students are much more active and engaged. During the break, a bunch of students try to get to know him, asking questions like if he is an idol or if he has a girlfriend. A student named Rio stops them from bothering him and takes Yuya to the cafeteria for lunch. Yuya is amazed by the menu, and everything is free, so Yuya thinks it's like a dream. They sit with another student named Shingo and start talking about anime, and Yuya is surprised to find that they are just like him. While eating, he notices that everyone is looking at him, and he thinks it's because he is wearing a different uniform. Shingo asks if he is in any clubs, but Yuya says he's not part of any. Rio isn't in a club either, but it's because he's good at all kinds of sports and has trouble choosing just one. Shingo reveals that he is part of the gaming club, and Yuya is surprised that consoles are allowed at school, but Shingo says it's fine as long as they don't play during class. As they talk about video games, Yuya becomes more comfortable with them. At the end of the day, he meets with Tsukasa and admits that he had a good time, and Yuya decides that he wants to join the school. As he leaves the room, he runs into Kaori, who asks if he's joining. He tells her his decision, and she is glad he chose to stay. She invites him to join her after school, and they visit some shops in a popular area. Yuya wonders if this is where she hangs out with her friends, but she reveals that she doesn't go out often because people seem to be hesitant about her family and her father. But she says that he is different. Yuya gets nervous, so she suggests checking out a crepe shop. Looking at the prices, he is glad he has been cashing out from the other world. As they try the crepes, they have a good time, and Yuya wants to try other flavors, but he suddenly thinks that if he eats too much, he might return to his original shape. He asks Kaori how she recognized him, even though he looks so different, but she says that although he is a bit slimmer, she recognized him because his eyes are still the same. She offers him a bite of her crepe since he wanted to try other flavors, so he takes a bite but feels a bit embarrassed. She notices how he feels, but he also offers her a bite. Nervously, she accepts and takes a bite, while some girls watch, thinking they look really cute together. Later that night, Yuya decides to head back to the other world. Putting on a full set of armor, he enters, confronting the monsters that appear. Even though he is still scared, he cuts them down and notices that he has leveled up to 235, but realizes that his leveling speed has slowed considerably. So, he thinks about leaving his house to find stronger monsters to fight. Thinking about his time at the academy, Yuya wants to find a new challenge. But as he heads out of the gate, he suddenly hears a scream. He pulls out his spear and rushes toward the sound, finding several soldiers brutally killed. He notices a monster, a level 200 goblin general. Yuya knows it is dangerous, but he sees a girl behind the monster. He throws his spear at it, but the goblin deflects it. However, at that moment, Yuya jumps and defeats the goblin. He turns towards the girl, but she shouts at him, warning about another goblin behind him. He is thrown back and realizes that this new goblin is stronger and faster than him, but Yuya doesn't give up, thinking he has other strength. He uses his spear to vault over the goblin, switches to his bow, and launches a barrage of arrows. Then, he switches again to his sword and cuts the goblin in half. He checks on the girl, wondering about the other humans in this world, but she faints. He hears men approaching, so he uses an invisibility skill to avoid them. Knights arrive, searching for the girl, and we learn that she is a princess named Lexia. Back at his house, Yuya thinks about the encounter, wondering if the girl is okay, but since knights appeared to help her, he believes she should be fine. Looking at his shirt, he thinks he should try buying some new clothes since he has made some money from the other world. We see all of them, and as Yuya walks around, people stare at him, thinking he must be some kind of actor or model. His shirt is enchanted to stay clean, but he thinks he should buy other clothes so he doesn't always look the same. Meanwhile, we see a director yelling at another man. The man is the manager of a model named Sho, but Sho hasn't shown up for the photo shoot. The manager gets a call from Sho and learns that he's on his way, but the director is mad because Sho isn't respecting everyone's time, especially Myo, their other model, who has been waiting all morning. The theme of the photo shoot is focused on being a couple, so it's impossible to shoot without him. The director thinks about what they should do, and since everyone is waiting to start, he decides to look for a replacement in the mall. As Yuya shops around, he feels overwhelmed by the number of choices. He is approached by some girls, and he worries it might be a sales tactic. They ask to know more about him and even offer to help him shop. Not wanting to offend them, he politely declines. The girls are left stunned and start freaking out over him, but Yuya wonders if he handled the situation the right way. The director struggles to find a replacement, but tells his assistant that they can't give up. They pass by Yuya, and the director instantly thinks he is the one. Yuya is approached, and the director explains their situation to him. Yuya is nervous about doing it, but thinking about all the people counting on him, he eventually agrees to be their model. He acts as the boyfriend for the shoot, taking photos in various outfits and poses. The director tells him to look sexier, but Yuya struggles with the direction. However, Myo tells him he's doing well for his first time, and Yuya is captivated by her beauty. She thanks him for saving them, but Yuya notices they are getting closer to him. The director notes that Yuya is looking a bit stiff. They move to their next location, and Yuya is impressed by Myo's professionalism, even though they are around the same age. This motivates him to give his best effort, but Myo grabs him for the next shot, and he panics as she presses closer to him. The director tells her to get even closer, so she wraps her arms around him and gets even closer, which embarrasses Yuya further as the crowd starts to watch them. Meanwhile, in the other world, we see Princess Lexia thinking about how she was saved. She decides to head out, and her knight wonders where she's going. She says she's going back to the dark forest to find the person who saved her, but the knight says it's impossible for someone to be living in that forest. However, Lexia insists she was saved by someone and needs to thank them. Her knight warns her of the dangers of returning, but she says that they are all going with her this time, and they wonder where she inherited such reckless behavior from. Back at the mall, the photo shoot ends, and Yuya is exhausted. Myo thanks him again, and Yuya suddenly chokes on his drink. Myo offers him her handkerchief, but Yuya worries because he's sweaty, yet he can't use his sleeve either because the clothes aren't his. Yuya reflects on his experience as a model and thinks Myo is amazing at it, but Myo says she's just gotten used to it, mentioning how she used to make a lot of mistakes when she started. He thinks about Myo's first time wearing such fashionable clothes, something he never had the chance to do in the past. He wonders why she started modeling, and she says she just wanted to be noticed because her parents were always too busy to spend time with her. After she started gaining some fans, she continued because she had people cheering her on, and she liked that she could bring happiness to the people who saw her. She tells him he can do it too, saying he should go at his own pace and reminds him to enjoy all the moments along the way. As they chat, the director takes some candid photos of them. At that moment, Sho suddenly arrives, and the crowd gets excited to see him. He approaches Myo, saying they can get on with their shoot. He pushes her against the wall, wanting to ask her out for drinks, but Yuya can see that she's uncomfortable. He interrupts them, and Sho wonders who he is. Sho tries to punch him, but Yuya throws him away. Everyone is shocked, and Yuya thinks about how slow the punch felt. He worries about causing a scene, thinking he'll get in trouble for beating up such a good-looking guy, but the crowd cheers for him, thinking he's so cool. Sho wonders how he lost, even though he boxes. The director tells him to leave because they caught everything in 4K. Sho runs off, and Myo thanks Yuya for his help, revealing that Sho had been following her around, and she didn't know what to do about it. The director says that Sho's behavior has always been bad, and after this, it's unlikely he'll work again. He asks if Yuya is interested in doing more modeling. Yuya thanks him for giving him the opportunity to work with so many professionals, but he thinks he's not good enough to do the job properly, so he ultimately turns them down. The director respects his decision and ends up giving Yuya all the clothes from the shoot as thanks for his help, since they couldn't pay him because he's just an amateur. Yuya feels that the experience was enough, but the director says it's only natural to be compensated for work, especially since he was the one who saved them, so Yuya accepts. Myo hopes to work with him again in the future, and they wish him good luck. Later in the car, the director laments that Yuya didn't want to continue, knowing he would have been a star. Looking at the photos, Myo thinks about how different Yuya was, and the director notices her blushing, so he teases her, saying she has a crush on him. Yuya organizes his wardrobe, packing all his new clothes, and we see that his photo has made the rounds at the agency. They wonder who he might be, and we see a woman desperate to sign him, ordering her associate to find him before other agencies do, noting how he was able to stand out next to Myo even as an amateur. She is determined not to let him slip away. Meanwhile, in the other world, we see Lexia's knights fighting some goblin. The knights are struggling, and suddenly a goblin appears behind her, but the goblin is defeated when Yuya makes his appearance. They are shocked to see him, and Yuya effortlessly slays the goblin. Lexia is glad to see he is real, and Yuya finishes off the goblin. He tends to one of the knights, and Lexia approaches him, saying she came to the dark forest because she had something to tell him. Yuya wonders what she wants, and she suddenly asks if he will marry her, causing shock among everyone. Her knight wonders what she is thinking, reminding her of her position as a princess and saying they know nothing about Yuya, but Lexia insists it's love at first sight. The two start arguing, but Yuya interrupts, saying it's dangerous in the forest, so he invites them back to his house, which surprises them to learn he actually lives in the forest. They are amazed to see his house, and the knight introduces himself as Owen, the captain of the Arzelian Knights, and he introduces Lexia as the first princess of Arzelia, mentioning that she is second in line for the throne. She thanks him for saving them once again, and Yuya starts to worry about his behavior after learning she is a princess, but they tell him not to worry since it's not an official visit and he is their savior. Yuya introduces himself, but they find his name strange and think he could be from another country. Lexia fantasizes about him being royalty from another country, but Owen worries about other possibilities. Owen reveals that they were there to find him because the first time he saved Lexia, she didn't get the chance to thank him. She says she has been thinking about him ever since that day, saying that it's the first time she has ever felt that way, and asks him to marry her again. Yuya is overwhelmed and thinks the proposal is just too sudden, making the princess think that love can't be so simple. Thinking about every romance novel she has read, she believes love needs obstacles and would be boring if things went so smoothly. So, she asks to start out as his friend. Yuya gets nervous thinking about his past experiences but agrees to be her friend. Owen mentions there is another reason they are there, which is that the king would like him to visit the royal palace to also offer his gratitude in person. Yuya is hesitant, but Owen says it's a royal command, and he can't leave until Yuya agrees. So, Yuya has no choice but to accept the invitation. Owen mentions it will take about 5 days, including travel, but Yuya thinks it would interrupt starting at his new school, so he asks to delay the meeting. Owen says they are happy to wait for him whenever he decides to go. They take their leave, and Lexia tells him to prepare himself because she plans to win his heart the next time they meet. Somewhere in the royal capital, we see a man reporting about their failed attempt on Lexia's life. We see a masked man and learn that he had sent assassins after Lexia, but they ended up in the dark forest and were taken out by monsters. The masked man wonders how Lexia managed to return unscathed and warns his men not to fail him again. He removes his mask, revealing a disfigured face, and we learn he is part of the royal family, as he swears to get his revenge on Lexia. Back at Yuya's house, he marks his calendar for when he plans to see the king. He puts on his new uniform and heads out to start his first day at the academy. Everyone stares at him as he walks, thinking he must be some kind of famous model. When he arrives, the director greets him but apologizes for not having time to talk, reminding Yuya to just enjoy himself at school. Yuya is introduced to the class as an official student, and we see Ryo and Shingo who are happy to see him. The scene cuts to a soccer game where we meet a student named Roy. He scores a goal and all the girls cheer for him. Yuya watches from the sidelines, impressed by his skill, and is approached by a girl named Keed. She wonders why he doesn't join the game, but Yuya says he doesn't have his gym clothes yet. We see Roy go up against the opposing team alone, but he tricks them by passing the ball to his teammate Akira. Akira rushes towards the goal, preparing to use his special move, but messes up and kicks it straight at Keed. However, Yuya manages to stop it and even scores a goal in the process. Everyone is shocked, wondering how he moves so quickly. He checks to see if Keed is okay, but she is left stunned by his skills. Akira comes rushing over to apologize, swearing to become her servant, but Keed says she is okay and turns him down. Roy vouches for Akira, saying he is just a bit quirky, and Akira thanks Yuya for saving both of them. Later, we see Kaori going to change for gym class, and all the girls are talking about Yuya, thinking he is like a prince. He tells her everything that happened, and the girls think he must have a girlfriend since he is so cool, but Kaori and Keed both insist that nothing has been confirmed. In his next class, Yuya waves to Kaori, who is on the field, but suddenly some delinquents burst in on motorbikes. They surround the girls, swinging their bats, and all the students check out the commotion. They recognize the group as the Red Ogres, the most dangerous delinquent group in the area. Yuya recognizes them and sees his siblings with the group. Kaori wonders what they are doing at their school, and Yuya's brother Yoda points her out as the director's daughter. Kaori recognizes the two of them, and they say they are there to get back at her for looking down on them and accepting Yuya into the academy. Kaori warns them that the police are on the way, but Yuya's sister Sora thinks they have time before they arrive, so they plan to abduct her as payback. The goons surround her, and things look bad. Yuya wants to save her but finds his legs shaking, even though he has fought far stronger opponents in the other world. His friends worry about him as he panics, but he manages to snap himself out of it. He opens the window and jumps out, shocking everyone since they are on the 4th floor. However, Yuya lands unscathed. He charges in, confronting his old bully Ryo, who says it's time to teach him a lesson and sends his boys at Yuya. But he easily dodges all their attacks and disarms them all in an instant. Ryo tries to attack, but Yuya runs right past him, focusing on saving Kaori. He's stopped by an enormous man named Amore, who charges at him, but Yuya doesn't even flinch and throws him aside. Yuya reaches Kaori, checking to see if she's okay, but the gang's boss charges at Yuya. Yuya manages to dodge, but the boss attacks with his bike. Yuya jumps out of the way, and the bike crashes, throwing the boss off. The boss is knocked out, and the police arrive. All the delinquents are arrested, and the students are told to return to their classes. Yuya makes sure Kaori is alright, and she suddenly weakens, but Yuya catches her, and they share a moment. Meanwhile, Yoda thinks the Red Ogres were useless, but he is suddenly choked by the boss, who blames him for their situation. Sora pleads for him, but is kicked away, and Yoda continues to be choked until Yuya intervenes, breaking them apart. Yoda thanks him, and the boss charges again, but Yuya merely scares him off. The students wonder what happened, but everything settles down. Yoda wonders why Yuya saved him, and Yuya says that, despite how terrible they've been to him, they're still family, and he couldn't abandon them. His brothers, moved to tears, beg for his forgiveness, apologizing for everything they've done. He is joined by his friends, who marvel at him, amazed at how he jumped from the window. Yuya apologizes for the trouble caused, and they are all astonished by his bravery. Yuya decides to explore deeper into the dark forest, remembering Owen's warning about it being the most dangerous region, with monsters so strong they could easily destroy a city. He reflects on the sage who once owned the house and delves further into the forest, seeking stronger monsters to face. Suddenly, he hears a cry and sees a puppy being attacked by an orc. The puppy glows with dark energy but is too weak to fight. Yuya watches from a distance, noting that the orc is a level 600 orc king with over 20,000 attack. Yuya thinks he stands no chance and nearly gives up on saving the puppy, but the orc continues to beat and stomp on the dog. Yuya can't bring himself to leave it, thinking about what his grandfather would do. He decides to help, thinking he might be able to distract the orc. He charges at the orc and ends up taking it out with a single shot. Yuya feels embarrassed for taking so long to muster the courage, only to finish so easily, but he remembers the ogre he defeated at level 1 and wonders about the sage who created such powerful weapons. He checks on the puppy, which growls at him. He offers a potion, and the puppy passes out. Yuya quickly treats the puppy, which starts to warm up to him. He tries talking to it and learns it is alone with nowhere to go. He offers to take it in, and the puppy happily agrees. Yuya acquires the taming skill, making the puppy his new companion. He checks its stats and finds it's actually a level 500 black Fenrir. Impressed by its stats, he thinks of a name and, observing its black fur, decides to call it Night. The puppy jumps onto him joyfully. They return to Yuya's house, and he examines the items dropped by the Orc King. There's an S-ranked magic stone, the sword, and armor used by the Orc King, though the gear can't be used by humans but could be reforged. There's also a rare brush with the ability to stimulate hair growth, which he uses to brush Night. Yuya checks his own stats and finds he's still level 235. He finds it strange that he didn't level up after defeating a level 600 monster, but believes he'll understand the leveling system eventually. Back in the real world, he leaves Night at home and goes to school. He asks his friends if there are any pet shops nearby, revealing he just adopted a dog. He gets excited and asks to see pictures, but Yuya becomes nervous with her so close. She apologizes, and Yuya explains he doesn't have any pictures because he doesn't even own a smartphone. His friends find this odd, but he says he never really needed one. They tell him about a nearby pet shop, but say they can't go with him after school. Keat offers to take him, and Yuya thanks her, though she starts thinking it could be like a date. She tells him not to worry about it. When he gets home, Knight rushes to him, and Yuya shows him the different items Keed helped him pick out from the shop. He gives Knight his new collar and decides they should go for a walk. They go to the park and everyone stares at them, thinking Yuya looks cool and Knight is adorable. He runs into Kaori and introduces Knight to her. She starts petting him and finds him adorable, while onlookers think they make a perfect couple. Kaori asks about Knight's breed, but Yuya pretends not to know, as he can't say it's a Fenrir. Kaori can tell Knight is smart and is happy Yuya adopted him. A girl calls out to Yuya, and it turns out to be Myo, the model he worked with. Turns out she also lives nearby and comes to the park to walk her dog. Yuya introduces the girls, and people are amazed to see him with another beautiful girl. They attract even more attention as people start recognizing Myo. Not wanting to cause a scene, Myo decides to leave but looks forward to seeing him again. After she leaves, Kaori wonders if Myo is his girlfriend, but Yuya is shocked, saying he's only met her once before and that she would be too good for him. Kaori disagrees with him. Suddenly, a woman screams as a man runs away with her purse. Kaori wonders what they should do, and Yuya tells Knight to chase the man. They check on the elderly lady, and Knight soon returns, dragging the man back. Yuya tells Kaori to call the police, but the man breaks free, charging at Kaori. Yuya steps in, easily disarming and restraining him. The crowd cheers for him, thinking he's very cool, and Kaori thanks him for saving her again. They hand the man over to the police, and Yuya heads home. Yuya continues exploring deeper into the dark forest with Knight, encountering countless monsters and challenges. They encounter another Orc King, but this time Knight showcases his skills, biting its neck and taking it down all by himself. As they continue on, they come across a crystal deer at level 630. Yuya, remaining invisible, observes the creature and notices its impressive magic stats. He contemplates how to approach it, but the deer suddenly detects him, despite his invisibility, leaving him no time to strategize. It charges at them, forcing the two to split up. Knight attempts an attack, but the deer counters with magic, creating an explosion to defend itself, and begins charging up another attack. Another attack erupts, firing a blast of water at Yuya, who deftly dodges it. Yuya realizes they need to coordinate, so he instructs Knight to create an opening. Knight leaps around the deer with remarkable speed, but the deer retaliates with magic, causing countless explosions in the area. Yet, Knight manages to land a hit, and Yuya seizes the moment to deliver the finishing blow. He examines the dropped items and notices a box that catches his eye. Upon closer inspection, he discovers it's a portable bath set that remains clean automatically, and includes a privacy feature to keep prying eyes away. Amazed by such a find, he decides to test it out, discovering various settings he can choose from. Realizing it's too dangerous to use in the middle of the forest, he opts to return to his house for the night and enjoys a relaxing bath with Knight. The next day, they face a needle roller known for its exceptional speed. Initially, Yuya struggles, but he soon learns to predict its movements and dodge its attacks, causing it to get stuck in a wall. He defeats it and finally levels up to 240, while Knight reaches level 510. Suddenly, the wall where the monster crashed begins to crack, revealing a cave. They decide to explore. Yuya scans for enemies but finds no signs of monsters. As they reach a larger room within the cave, it starts to light up. Yuya is stunned to find a body, but Knight points out a book on the floor. Yuya checks it and discovers it's the Book of the Sage. As Yuya reads the book, he learns that the sage mastered every skill and became as powerful as a god. The gods even invited him to join them, but he declined. The book begins speaking to Yuya, warning him that as he grows stronger, those around him will start to fear him. Yuya wonders how he can prevent this, and hears the sage's voice advising him to find trustworthy people. The sage asks if there's anything Yuya wants to know, and Yuya requests to learn magic. The sage fills the book with all his knowledge about magic, but notes that Yuya can't use magic because he lacks magical circuits, being from another world. However, the sage decides to transfer his own magical circuits to Yuya, urging him to find happiness and live a good life. Yuya returns home and starts learning magic from the book. He begins by sensing the magical energy around him and acquires the skill of magical energy manipulation. He learns that he only needs to gather magical energy in his hand and imagine the spell he wants to cast. He goes outside to try it out, envisioning a ball of water. Knight also appears to be learning, and Yuya tests his magic by shooting the ball at a tree, revealing its immense power as it blasts through the tree. Meanwhile, in the royal capital, Alan reports to the king about Yuya. When he mentions the princess's proposal, the king loses his composure, thinking that Yuya seduced his daughter. Back at school, Yuya daydreams about the sage's warning regarding the use of magic, noting that the techniques he's learning are uncommon even in his own world. The teacher announces a camping trip the following week and sorts them into groups of 4. Yuya is grouped with Keed, Akira, and a girl named Rin. Keed is excited about the trip, but Yuya mentions he doesn't have camping gear, so Keed suggests they go shopping. They head to the mall, where Shingo is surprised to see Kaori joining them. Ryo also can't believe Yuya is friends with Kaori, given that most people find her unapproachable because she's the director's daughter. Kaori tells them to treat her like any other student. Yuya wonders where Akira is, and Shingo mentions he couldn't make it. They go inside and help Yuya pick out a backpack. They decide to hang out and end up at an arcade. Shingo is thrilled to see his favorite character in a crane game, but admits he's terrible at it. Yuya decides to try, using his detect weakness skill to find the weak spot and wins the figure on his first try. Keed asks him to win her a cat, and Yuya uses his skill again, easily winning it for her. He ends up winning prizes for all his friends, and Kaori says it's her first time at an arcade, thanking him for the gift. The girls decide to shop for clothes, so the guys take a break and head to a cafe. Yuya reflects on the fun he had hanging out with friends for the first time, but suddenly an alarm rings, announcing a fire and the need to evacuate. Yuya worries about the girls, thinking the fire might be closer to them. They reach the stairs, and Yuya asks a man if he has seen his friends. Ryo receives a call from Keed, who says they are still stuck upstairs. Yuya rushes up the stairs, thinking of his friends, and reaches the source of the fire. The sprinklers aren't enough to extinguish it, so Yuya decides to use his magic. He covers himself with a layer of water, allowing him to run through the flames. The girls are unconscious from the smoke, and Yuya hurries to find them. He reaches them just in time and wonders if there is anyone else. He uses his detection skill to scan the building and finds they are the only ones left. He covers the girls with his magic, but the fire intensifies, and he fears they might not make it out. Meanwhile, Ryo and Shingo watch from outside, informing the officers that their friends are still inside, but nothing can be done until the fire is under control. Yuya runs around searching for an exit, but the roof collapses. As he dodges, Kaori drops the gift he gave her. He reaches a dead end and realizes there's no way out, so he uses his magic to smash through the building and create his own escape route. The building shakes, but Yuya manages to get out with the girls. They receive medical attention, and the firefighters reprimand him for his recklessness. Kaori's father arrives, thanking him for saving his daughter once more, and Yuya returns the honor pin he picked up. Kaori hugs her father, and Yuya reflects on what a family should be like, realizing he doesn't have anyone like that. But when he gets home, Night rushes to him, and Yuya realizes that Night is like family to him. Reflecting on what more he can achieve with magic, Yuya recalls that magic is merely the materialization of his imagination. He contemplates using it to travel, focusing on his desired destination, and manages to open a portal that takes him deep into the dark forest. He is thrilled that it worked, but it seems he can only use it to reach places he has already been. He thinks he might use it to return home and feed Night, even while he is on his school trip. They seize the chance to explore further and discover a cave that houses some goblins. With his legendary sword, Yuya defeats them effortlessly, finding a collection of rare items that he stores away using his storage skill. He feels that his teamwork with Night is improving. They leave the cave, and Yuya thinks they should call it a day, but Night, disheartened, wishes to continue. Yuya says he needs to return to prepare for his school trip, but Night suddenly runs off. Yuya chases after him, and it seems Night detects something ahead. Yuya uses his invisibility skill to proceed with caution. He comes across an injured girl surrounded by goblins. Yuya wants to save her, but Night pulls him back. An elite goblin attacks, knocking down a tree, but it seems there are some threads that interfere, and the girl counterattacks, severing the goblin's arm. Yuya wonders about the threads, but the goblins launch themselves at the girl. She blocks their attacks with her threads, but the elite goblin lands a hit, seemingly knocking her out. As the goblin approaches her, Yuya and Night emerge and together eliminate the goblins, only to be met by a swarm of new ones. Yuya decides to use his divine whip, binding and crushing all the goblins in a single strike. He feels it's incredibly overpowered, capable of targeting multiple enemies at once and never missing. After the battle, Yuya ponders what to do with the girl. He considers taking her home, but it seems Night thinks it's a bad idea. He doesn't want to leave her, but she suddenly wakes up, surprised to be carried, and falls to the ground. Yuya offers her his healing juice, which instantly heals all her wounds. The girl is astonished by its effectiveness and wonders who he is. Yuya introduces himself and Night, but Night remains hostile, leaving Yuya puzzled. They learn the girl's name is Luna. She reveals she was training in the forest when she was ambushed by the elite goblin and ended up in trouble. She asks what happened to the goblins, and Yuya tells her he defeated them. She inquires about his presence in the forest, and he admits he was training as well, which surprises Luna for some reason, since Yuya was the one who carried her to safety. Luna apologizes for being so dirty and sweaty, but Yuya assures her it's okay. She asks if there's a river nearby where she can clean up, but Yuya brings out his portable bath. He keeps watch outside, and Luna is amazed by such a rare item. Yuya mentions it came from a crystal deer, and Luna is impressed that he defeated such a monster. Yuya finds this normal for the dark forest, but Luna reveals she is there on a client's request. Though Yuya does not hear this, Luna asks him to join her training, as they are both training in the forest and she wants to train with him. Yuya feels guilty about leaving her to train alone, so he agrees to join her. We then see them training together, with Yuya helping Luna practice while she also teaches him. They both grow stronger, and Luna defeats a goblin using her threads. Yuya praises her for defeating an elite goblin, but she says she still has a long way to go and needs to become even stronger to complete her mission. Yuya says he needs to leave, trying to explain that he has a school trip, but it doesn't make much sense to her, so he simply apologizes. Luna thanks him for all his help. After their last day of training, Yuya relaxes in a bath, but Luna suddenly joins him, wanting to share the bath. Yuya feels embarrassed, but Luna clings to him, expressing how much the time with him has meant to her and how she will cherish it. She thanks him again, offering to wash his bath, but her towel falls, and Yuya becomes even more embarrassed. His class sets off on their school trip, and we see Yuya playing cards with his friend. Keed remarks that Yuya looks tired, and Yuya admits he didn't sleep well the previous night. Yuya wins the game, and everyone is amazed that he won 5 times in a row, but Yuya thinks it's just luck. He decides to take a nap and reflects that his continual victories might be due to the points he invested in his luck stat, considering that the incident with Luna might also have been due to luck. Yuya is awakened as they arrive at their destination. The students change clothes, and the teacher explains they will be camping for 2 days and must find a way to survive off the land, mentioning fish in the river and edible plants, with concerns that the plants might be poisonous. Sawada assures them the school doctor is on standby, although the students find her eerie because they always hear screams from her office. Akira thinks they could go without food for a day, but Sawada says it's all part of the lesson, noting it's a competition between the classes. Yuya wonders if there's a reward for the winners, but Sawada reveals it affects her bonus and tells them to do their best, though the students are unimpressed. They are left in the forest, and Yuya wonders what they should do first. Akira thinks it will be easy to survive, but the other 3 ignore him, thinking he's a fool. Rin suggests that Yuya and Ki try fishing while she and Akira look for edible plants. We see all the students by the river, and Ki thinks they were too slow. They see Rio by the water, and he warns them that all the good spots are taken. Ki wonders if they should try something else, but Yuya uses his detection skill and finds another spot. There are many fish in the area, but Ki thinks the water is too shallow, so their fishing rods won't be effective. However, Yuya has another plan. He steps into the water and thinks that, compared to the monsters of the dark forest, the fish are much slower. He recalls what he learned from Luna about predicting monster behavior and manages to catch a fish with his hand. Keed is impressed by this, and Yuya continues to catch all the fish. The other students think he's crazy, and Keed believes he has caught too many fish. Yuya admits he got carried away and thinks he should thank Luna for her advice. Meanwhile, in a dark part of the city, we see a shop filled with puppets. Luna uses her threads to cut off all the heads of the puppets and notices that her power has improved. She reflects on the time she spent with Yuya, but we reveal that she is, in fact, an assassin who has been killing since childhood. However, she views Yuya differently, wishing she had met him earlier so her life could have taken a different path. But she knows she needs to forget him, as she is known as the head hunter and prepares for her next target. Yuya and Keed reunite with Rin, showing her their catch, and Rin is surprised to hear that Yuya caught all the fish with his bare hands. Yuya wonders what happened to Akira, who is on the ground. Akira complains that Rin used him to test mushrooms, to see if they were poisonous, and used him as bait to attract bears. Yuya worries about him, checking his stats to see if he was poisoned, but he is relieved to find that he is fine. Rin and Akira show all the plants they gathered, and Yuya praises them. With his ability, he gets rid of some poisonous mushrooms. They head to the building to show the professor what they collected, and we see other students checking the food to ensure nothing is poisonous. Yuya finds Kaori, who asks how his team is doing. They talk about the experience until Kaori is called by her team. Akira is surprised by Kaori's closeness to Yuya, wishing he could be more like him. The teenager shows his catch to Sawada, who praises him for being the first team to bring a large amount of safe food to eat. She is excited about the bonus idea but mentions that they will also be evaluated on their cooking skills. She asks who plans to cook, and everyone points to Yuya. Sawada encourages him to do his best, saying that her bonus depends on him, but Yuya thinks she shouldn't be so transparent about her motivations. Yuya begins to prepare the meal. Thanks to the time he spent living alone and cooking in another world, he manages to make a rather impressive dish. The team serves themselves, and Yuya waits to see their reaction, but Sawada appears after drinking a little and is surprised by the food. She tastes it too, and Yuya is nervous, wondering what they will think, but they end up finding the food amazing. Sawada says that, although their meals are prepared by top chefs at the school, she thinks his food is even better, wondering how that's possible. Yuya reflects on how he only cooked for himself since he was alone, but is happy to see people enjoying his food. After the meal, Sawada asks if he would marry her, which surprises everyone. She reveals that she doesn't know how to cook or clean, as she has always been focused on her research and has never had a relationship before. After eating his food, she considers him a prize and asks to marry him and take care of her. Everyone says it's a bad idea, and Keed even says Yuya is not suitable, but this makes Yuya think he must be a failure as a person. Sawada insists on marrying him, even saying she would wait for him. Yuya is nervous, thinking it's inappropriate since she is his teacher, but says he thinks she is a good teacher. Sawada is pleased to hear this, hugging him tightly while Keed tries to push him away, and Akira thinks he is the luckiest guy in the world. Later that night, Yuya teleports back home to check on Knight. Using some food from his storage, he quickly prepares a dinner for Knight. As he watches Knight eat, he thinks about how much he enjoys making others happy with his cooking. He teleports back to the camp, where everyone is bathing together. Everyone stares at him, and Yuya wonders what's going on. Akira points out that his body looks ridiculous, and Yuya questions what's wrong, but Akira can't believe how handsome and muscular he has become. Meanwhile, in the girls' bathroom, Rin teases Keed, saying that all the boys must be interested in her, but they encounter Kaori and mention how Sawada wanted to marry Yuya. Kaori is surprised to hear this, and the girls think Sawada has a certain advantage. Keed seems inspired to make a move toward Yuya as well. Kaori wonders if she is interested in Yuya, but quickly denies it. Rin thinks it's very obvious, but Kaori wonders about Yuya's preferences regarding girls. The next morning, some of the students find their belongings destroyed, wondering if it might have been a thief. Akira looks worried while Yuya checks to see if all his belongings are still there. The group decides to look for something for breakfast, but Akira is startled to see claw marks on a tree. Yuya remembers that Akira was used to lure bears and realizes what's happening as he looks around. The bear suddenly appears in front of the girls, and they quickly flee. The bear chases them and all the students panic. Sawada signals the group to protect themselves with her. The bear crashes into the table, and Sawada tells them to stay safe while they escape. Sawada falls, and the bear lunges at her, but Yuya steps in. He fights the bear, throwing it to the ground and knocking it out. He checks on Sawada, who says she would normally reprimand him for fighting a bear, but since he saved her life, she decides to leave him alone, offering to marry him again, which he politely declines. Yuya wonders what will happen to the bear, and Kaori explains that they will keep it as a guard bear, and if it attacks people again, they will just eat it. The bear seems to understand, so the problem is resolved, and the camping trip comes to an end. Back at home, Yuya is scheduled to meet with the king in the other world. Accompanied by Lexia, he encounters a group of demons in the forest, thinking it would be bad if Lexia's group found these demons. So, he resolves to confront them. Knight's blade strikes true, cutting through one of the demons, while Yuya hurls his spear, only to see it caught mid-air. Switching to a hammer, Yuya smashes the demon with a force that clears the surrounding area, leaving him awestruck by the sage's weapons once more. The demon drops a helmet, striking in its peculiar design, and Yuya dons it. A curious rabbit, with eyes full of intrigue, watches him, sensing something extraordinary. Lexia's party arrives, and Owen's worry becomes palpable upon seeing Yuya, his concern tied to the enigmatic helmet. Yuya swiftly removes it, and relief washes over them as they greet him with familiar warmth. They inquire if he's ready to meet the king and extend an invitation to the palace. But then, chaos erupts as Knight leaps towards Lexia just as a tree collapses, and Yuya slices it in two with a swift motion. He perceives the intricate threads Luna might weave and understands that Knight was safeguarding the princess. Owen is bewildered, and Luna, cursing her own misfortune, tries to flee but is subdued by Yuya's forceful intervention. The truth hits Yuya. Luna is indeed the one he had not anticipated. Lexia joins him, her curiosity piqued. Yuya reveals Luna's attempt on her life and realizes Knight's long-held knowledge. He requests to tend to Luna's wounds and take her to his home for answers, unwilling to accept her as a villain. Lexia consents, while Alan hastens to stop her, but Lexia insists on visiting Yuya's abode. Yuya questions her certainty, and Lexia admits her desire to understand both the attack and her relationship with Luna. Yuya chooses to use his teleportation to hasten their return, leaving Owen behind. Lexia is astonished by the teleportation, and they wait for Luna's awakening. Yuya recounts their forest meeting and training, yet Lexia remains captivated by the teleportation spell he employed. Yuya, revealing it as a spontaneous creation born of thought, finds Lexia in disbelief. She warns that teleportation magic is deemed mythical, its usage unconfirmed, and should anyone discover his ability, it could ignite conflict. She demands a promise to refrain from displaying it recklessly. Suddenly, Lexia calls out to Luna, questioning her pretense of sleep. Luna stirs, caught in her deception, as Lexia notes Yuya's awareness of her ruse and his kindness in playing along. Lexia probes Luna's past, but Luna, feeling resigned, asks to be killed. Yuya too seeks her story. Luna recounts her life as an orphan, scavenging for survival until a man took her in, teaching her literacy and assassination. She eventually joined the Dark Guild. Yuya's curiosity is piqued by this guild, and Lexia explains its nefarious deeds. Luna reveals her countless assassinations and her notorious title as the Headhunter. Lexia is taken aback, recognizing the name. Yuya contemplates whether Knight knew from the start, connecting the dots to Knight's initial hostility. Luna discloses her failed mission to kill Lexia, sealing her fate, either execution or the Dark Guild's merciless pursuit. Yuya's concern for her is palpable, but Luna questions his empathy given their fleeting acquaintance. Yuya affirms that despite their brief encounter, it held profound meaning for him, considering her a friend. Luna deems her situation hopeless, but Lexia intervenes, offering her a chance to become her bodyguard instead. Luna, bewildered, listens as Lexia proposes keeping the assassination attempt secret, protecting Luna by making her the princess's guard, thus complicating any pursuit by the Dark Guild. Luna, grappling with her past sins and stained hands, is incredulous, but Lexia speaks of her beautiful hands soft from Yuya's bath. Luna's resistance fades as Lexia's words take hold, declaring that her failure makes her a loser who must follow orders. Luna resigns to the role. Meanwhile, Alan and his soldiers flee from goblins, their retreat leaving Lexia's safety in Yuya's hands. Luna, bewildered by her new circumstances and Lexia's apparent tyranny, faces her first order to learn more about Yuya's bath. Luna reveals Yuya's rare bath item that can conjure a bath anywhere, aiding in fatigue recovery and enhancing beauty. Lexia, captivated by the notion, demands to experience it herself. She decides to take a bath with Luna, extending an invitation, inviting Yuya to bathe. Nervous and hesitant, declines. Feeling a pang of embarrassment, Lexia proceeds alone. The girls relish the bath, finding solace in its warmth. Yet, amidst the relaxation, Lexia inquires whether Luna harbors feelings for Yuya. Luna, asserting they are merely friends, is met with Lexia's insistence that she can see the affection in Luna's eyes. Luna denies it, brushing off the notion as mere imagination. Undeterred, Lexia unveils her own intentions to marry Yuya. Luna, taken aback, protests against this plan. Lexia counters that if their bond is purely platonic, Luna should not be troubled. Luna's feelings remain uncertain, yet Lexia boldly declares a contest for Yuya's heart, proclaiming a declaration of war. Luna, though initially confused by the declaration, is driven by the thought of Yuya being taken from her and accepts the challenge, yearning for him. Lexia announces that, from now on, Luna will be both her guardian and rival. After their bath, Yuya suggests preparing dinner. Lexia volunteers but struggles with a simple potato, nearly causing an accident. Yuya steps in to cook, and the meal turns out delicious. Lexia praises his culinary skills, inciting Luna's jealousy. Luna requests Yuya feed her, citing her lingering injuries. Yuya, recalling his earlier blows, agrees. As she eats, Luna smirks at Lexia, who, envious, demands to be fed as well. Yuya insists Lexia isn't injured, but Lexia, wielding her authority as princess, commands him, leaving him no choice but to comply. That night, the girls sleep together, and Yuya, though weary, reflects on the day's events with a sense of fulfillment. The following morning, they reunite with Owen and his men. Yuya apologizes for leaving them behind. Everyone marvels at their companions, and Yuya introduces Knight once more. Owen expresses his gratitude for Yuya saving Lexia the previous day and begins to ponder Luna's true identity. Lexia, with unflinching honesty, reveals that Luna was an assassin who had tried to take her life, but will now serve as her guard. The revelation leaves everyone stunned, and Luna is astonished by how swiftly her secret was laid bare. Owen immediately surrounds her, but Lexia intervenes, urging him to stand down. Alan refuses, insisting that she cannot be trusted. However, Lexia counters that they had spent the night together, and if Luna had intended to kill her, she would already be dead. Alan reluctantly acquiesces, but insists they will keep a vigilant watch over her. Yuya suddenly interjects, saying he can no longer accompany them to the palace, as their extended stay at the house leaves him without time for the journey, needing to return to school. Owen tells him to visit whenever he can, guiding him towards a village where he should find directions to the capital. Lexia bids him farewell, urging him to visit soon, but Luna abruptly rushes back to Yuya, planting a kiss on him and thanking him for everything he has done. Lexia, heartbroken, demands to return so she too can have a kiss, but Owen simply pretends not to hear and continues their journey. Yuya contemplates the kiss, wondering about Luna's feelings, but eventually takes a bath to unwind. He is startled to discover a strange creature that had snuck in, and a notification appears, revealing that he has just tamed it. The creature, though bewildered, accepts its new reality, and Yuya decides to inspect its stats. His appraisal skill has leveled up, allowing him to see the creature's abilities. He notices a skill called Holy Ground and asks to see its effects. The creature conjures a field of light around them, providing Yuya with a noticeable boost. Impressed, Yuya decides to name it, settling on Akatsuki. Night reminds him of the time, and Yuya hurries back to school. In their class, Sayana announces a sports competition, where the results will impact their bonuses. She encourages them to give their best. The first event is soccer, and their class is split into 2 teams. Yuya plays as the goalkeeper, unfamiliar with the rules. As the game begins, Real dominates, tackling the opposing team alone and scoring a goal. Kite is awestruck, but Rin reveals they have a second secret weapon, instructing her to jump. As Rin hops up and down, all the guys are distracted, and Akira seizes the chance to steal the ball from Rio. Akira's morale soars, and Rin realizes her plan has backfired. Akira advances, taking his shot, but Yuya stops it with a swift move, leaving everyone amazed. He ponders what to do with the ball, and Rio tells him to throw it as hard as he can. Yuya takes the chance and launches the ball straight into the opposing goal, wondering if he scored a point. After school, Yuya is approached by a modeling agency that invites him to join the industry. He declines quickly, leaving the chief astonished by his lack of interest. Yuya explains he is already enjoying his time at school. Mise arrives, trying to convince him as well, and his friends are shocked by his connection to the model. Yuya explains they had worked together once, and they are shown the cover of an upcoming magazine featuring them together. A poster for their sports competition lands nearby, and Kaori chases after it, but the chief suddenly gets an idea. She proposes writing an article about the school and photographing Yuya during the event, and leaves to seek approval from the school. In another world, Yuya defeats a skeletal monster, but feels he hasn't grown stronger. He decides to venture deeper into the forest and encounters an area filled with incredibly tough black trees, resistant to ordinary attacks. He wonders how Akatsuki grew so large, but Akatsuki is actually behind him, and he is attacked by a mithril boar. Yuya attempts to heal himself, but the boar charges at him again. Realizing he is in danger, he braces for impact, but the boar is suddenly thrown away as a peculiar rabbit appears. The rabbit introduces itself as Usagi, and Yuya is surprised to hear it speak. The boar rises, but Usagi dispatches it in an instant, and Yuya is astonished by the destruction of the surrounding trees. He checks Usaki's stats and finds him incredibly powerful, with a myriad of titles. Yuya thanks him for his aid, and the rabbit asks to see his kick. Yuya demonstrates, and Usaki recognizes his potential. Usaki shows off his own kick, smashing through multiple trees, and begins to train Yuya to match his skill. After some time, Yuya manages to destroy one of the trees and moves on to sparring with Usaki. Yuya wonders why he is being trained, and Usaki reveals it's because he wishes Yuya to be his successor. He explains that he is known as a divine, with the duty to pass on his techniques. The title divine is given to those who have mastered a particular field, and Usaki is the divine kicker. Their role is to protect the world from the vile beings that manifest the world's negative aspects. Yuya wonders if he has a choice in becoming Usaki's disciple, and Usaki assures him he can refuse but mentions that the battle against the vile is inevitable, thus they need as many allies as possible. Yuya prefers not to become a divine but thinks about his desire to protect Night and Akatsuki. Usaki decides to continue his training but asks to learn magic from Yuya, impressed by the barrier around his house. Although Yuya thinks it was merely the sage's work, they agree to exchange knowledge. We see Yuya being pursued by the King Mithril Boar. Usagi sees it as an opportunity for Yuya to have a rematch. Yuya struggles, but, using his kicks and his whip, manages to defeat it. Yuya celebrates his victory and discovers it has dropped several SS-ranked items. Usaki explains that there are even higher rankings like SS and EX-ranked monsters, and that the Vile are even stronger at the legendary rank. Suddenly, Yuya receives a notification. He suddenly begins to glow. His appearance remains unchanged, yet it seems he has acquired a host of new skills. The next day, Yuya participates in the table tennis competition, and the chief urges him to put on a memorable performance. His opponent, known as the Sniper, is the national champion, delivering a devastating serve that even Yuya misses. But compared to the boar he once faced, Yuya effortlessly returns the next serve, even making a hole in the table. However, he forfeits the match to avoid injuring anyone, and the photographers complain that he moved too swiftly for them. Kai drags Yuya off to play volleyball, as one of their team members is injured, and the chief follows. As the match begins, the crowd is left in astonishment as the ball bursts and the net is entirely destroyed. The opposing team immediately concedes, and the chief discovers they missed the shot because the photographers were distracted by something. Kai reassures Yuya, saying a win is still a win. Suddenly, they hear a scream and see Kaori being carried away. Yuya is warned to watch out for the serve. Yuya takes his place in the tennis match, and his opponents tell him he too will need medical attention. The match continues, and Kaori serves the ball, narrowly missing him, landing out of bounds. Yuya tries to encourage her, but she serves again, throwing her racket. Yuya realizes that the other student was actually taken out by Kaori. Understanding this, Yuya takes control of the game, making every shot count and leading his team to victory. Kaori attempts to be helpful but ends up throwing her racket again and nearly falls. Yuya catches her, and the chief finally gets a chance to take a photo. At the end of the day, Kaori walks home with Yuya, thanking him for his help. She wants to treat him to a meal, but Yuya says he's just happy to be with her, so there's no need for thanks. Kaori kisses him instead. Meanwhile, Usagi fights one of the vile creatures. Usagi defends himself with magic, which surprises the girl, as he shouldn't be able to use magic. He thanks Yuya for teaching him, and the girl reassesses her priorities, deciding that Yuya poses a greater threat. She sets off to find him and deal with him first. The agency chief reviews their upcoming issue and is thrilled with all the photos of Yuya. She imagines how well the magazine will sell, but her subordinate worries that other agencies will chase after Yuya once they see it. However, the chief is unperturbed and seems to have a plan to ensure Yuya cannot refuse joining their agency. Back at Yuya's house, he and Kaori study together. Yuya thanks her for helping with his math, but she says it's no problem, as he has been teaching her English. Yuya credits his language comprehension skill for making English easy to understand. In a flashback, we see them walking home together, and we learn their exams are approaching. Yuya worries about how he will perform, and Kaori is surprised to find something he isn't good at. She was the one who suggested they study together. She meets Akatsuki for the first time and finds both his pets adorable as they sleep. She asks to use the restroom, but after she leaves, Yuya wonders if she will find it. Kaori ends up in front of the door to another world, and Yuya follows her. Kaori says she felt drawn to the door, and Yuya becomes anxious. He explains that the door leads to another world and asks her to try putting her hand through it. Her hand is stopped by a barrier, and Yuya explains that only those he permits can pass through. Kaori wonders about the other world, and Yuya describes it as a realm of monsters and magic, demonstrating his magical abilities. Kaori is astonished, and Yuya explains that it was all thanks to this other world that he acquired the skills necessary to confront the delinquents who attacked the school and to save everyone from the fire in the department store. Kaori finds it unbelievable, and Yuya offers to show her more of the other world. He takes her hand, and they cross over together. Kaori is amazed to see that there truly is another world, and Yuya explains that both Knight and Akatsuki come from this world. He describes Knight as a fenrir, akin to a wolf, and Akatsuki as somewhat like a pig, though Akatsuki is offended by this description. Kaori's status window appears, and Yuya explains that abilities in this world are represented by stats. He is surprised to see that her starting stats are much higher than his when he began, remembering how he only had 1 point in every stat. He explains how he leveled up in this world and how his appearance changed drastically as a result, feeling as though he had cheated and that he wouldn't have been accepted otherwise. Kaori changes the subject, asking to see more of the world. Yuya mentions that it is dangerous outside the barrier of his house, but agrees to show her more another time. She makes him pinky promise, and Yuya asks her to keep his secret, making her feel a special bond and growing closer to him. Meanwhile, in the capital, Lexia returns to the palace, and the king wonders why Union is not with them. Owen explains that their plans had to be altered, and the king questions whether it has anything to do with Luna. Luna immediately admits she attempted to assassinate Lexia, and the king grabs his sword, preparing to execute her. He lunges at her but stops, acknowledging her skill, as she had realized his sword could cut through anything that tried to obstruct it, so she had stopped his arms instead. Lexia becomes furious with her father, telling him that it was her decision to take Luna as her guard, and that she would hate him if he harmed her. The king is devastated by this and ultimately recognizes Luna as one of Lexia's guards. Afterward, the king inquires more about Luna, and Owen explains how she was known as the headhunter for the Dark Guild. The king wonders how this relates to Yuya, and Owen explains how Yuya was the one who captured Luna and took her and Lexia back to his home. Upon hearing that Lexia stayed over at a man's house, the king starts to rage, contemplating how he wants to cut Yuya down. Alan tells him that nothing happened, but the king insists he can't be certain since he wasn't there. Meanwhile, we see the masked man who once tried to kill Lexia. We learn that he is, in fact, the first prince, Rieger. His subordinate informs him that a supporting noble had hired Luna to assassinate Lexia, but the attempt failed because of Yuya, and Luna ended up becoming Lexia's guard. The subordinate also mentions that Yuya was invited to the palace, and this sparks an idea in Rieger's mind. He gives his subordinate a secret weapon, a magical sealing barrier that can nullify all magic within its realm. This will render all magic users, the guards, and even the king powerless, leaving only Owen and Luna to deal with. His subordinate worries about exposure if the plan fails, but Rieger believes they can frame Yuya Yuya when he arrives. Yuya is granted an extra day off after the academy's competition, so he prepares for his visit to the capital. He engages in some farming, defeating a sheep monster that drops various items, including a rare resting item that offers the finest sleep experience. Heading to the nearby town, Yuya is astonished to see cat girls in this world. He visits the guild to trade, lacking money in this new realm. The guild master finds his name peculiar and does not recognize his origin. Yuya explains he is from a small island, and the master speculates he must be a noble based on his appearance. Yuya insists he is merely an ordinary man, but the master remains skeptical. The master is amazed by Yuya's item box skill. Yuya pulls out a collection of peppers, and the master is instantly awed by their quality, deeming them the best he has ever seen. Yuya, however, considers them just average peppers from the local shop. The master offers to buy them all for 100 gold coins, and Yuya wonders if that is a significant amount, admitting his ignorance of the kingdom's currency value. The master explains that an average family could live comfortably on 5 gold coins per year, so 100 gold would support a family for 20 years. The master also provides Yuya with a guild card for identification and advises him on how to reach the capital. He mentions a stagecoach that travels directly to the capital. Upon arriving in the capital, Yuya is overwhelmed by the sheer number of people. Akatsuki points towards the palace, and Yuya begins to worry, feeling out of place. He heads to the palace, where Owen greets him and says they will see the king directly. Yuya panics, feeling unprepared, but Owen reassures him that it's only an informal audience. Inside the chamber, Lexia and Luna await, and Yuya pays his respects to the king. The king immediately brings up Lexia's marriage proposal and starts to lose composure, suspecting Yuya of seducing his daughter. Owen manages to calm him, but the king is displeased because Yuya did not bring any gifts for Lexia. Yuya quickly presents the resting item he obtained from the sheep. Lexia is flattered, but this only seems to anger the king further, who believes Yuya is attempting to woo his daughter right in front of him. Owen tries to intervene, explaining that Yuya is unaware of their customs, and Yuya wonders what is happening. Lexia clarifies that giving a resting item as a gift signifies an intention to marry and share a bed with the recipient. Yuya realizes his mistake, and the king prepares to execute him, but they are suddenly attacked by assassins. The king orders his guards to fire, but one of the men activates the ceiling barrier, halting the arrows. The assassins strike, but Yuya defeats them, and with Knight's help, he swiftly eliminates them all. Lexia hugs him, praising him, but Luna grows jealous and tries to pull her away, while the king glares at Yuya. Owen discovers an emblem on one of the assassins and realizes that the attack was orchestrated by the first Prince Rieger. News of the attack spreads among the guards, and it seems the king has since isolated himself in his room. Yuya ponders his next steps, and we see Alan ask for his help in keeping Lexia safe. Yuya searches for Lexia, hesitating to enter a room, but Lexia emerges and suggests they explore the capital together, as it is his first visit. Luna reminds Lexia of her situation, but Lexia argues that if her brother were to send more assassins, he would be revealing his own position. Luna agrees with this logic but understands Lexia is eager to get out. Luna offers to stay in the castle while she shows Yuya around, but Lexia refuses, not wanting them to be alone together. Alan proposes to guide Yuya while they both remain in the castle, but both girls reject his idea. Eventually, the two girls go out while Alan watches from a distance. Lexia wants to show Yuya the jewelers, but Luna has other ideas, and the two girls bicker over his attention. Their commotion draws the attention of passers-by, who assume Yuya must be some sort of noble, accompanied by two beauties. As they explore the city, Yuya expresses interest in the Adventurers Guild, mentioning his registration with the Merchants Guild on his way to the capital. Luna suggests he should also register with the Adventurers Guild, as he hunts frequently. This would make trading monster materials easier and allow him to earn money from quests. Luna decides to register too, wishing to accompany Yuya on a quest. Lexia dislikes the idea, but Luna suggests Lexia register as well. Lexia complains about them being together, but Luna reassures her that Yuya will likely be too busy to take on quests with her. They meet the clerk, Amelia, who hands them their application forms. Yuya starts filling them out but is faced with a question about what types of magic he can use. He recalls the sage telling him that common knowledge about magic is limited, so he decides not to mention his proficiency in all types of magic and teleportation. He only lists wind, fire, and water. The next question is about magical power, and Amelia explains that they use a crystal ball to measure a person's magical energy. Yuya wonders why they don't just check the status window, but Amelia explains that most adventurers keep their stats secret, so this method ensures accuracy. Luna measures her energy, causing the ball to glow yellow, but she comments that she has never been skilled with magic. When Yuya measures his energy, the ball shatters, shocking everyone. Emilia thinks it might be a mistake and decides to test him again, but the result remains the same. Yuya apologizes, wondering if he needs to pay something. Emilia tells him it's alright, but she is taken aback as she reviews their application. Her shock intensifies when she discovers Yuya can wield 3 different types of magic. Yuya wonders if there is a problem, and Emilia explains that being capable of such diverse magic elevates him to the realm of the legendary figures from fairy tales. Lexia is impressed, and Yuya is just relieved he didn't disclose all the magical abilities he possesses. Emilia places their applications into a machine, which then produces their guild card. She informs them that as new adventurers, they will start at F rank. Yuya asks if there are any requirements for completing quests, but Emilia assures them they can proceed at their own pace, cautioning them to avoid over-harvesting plants during item-gathering quests to allow for regrowth. The group examines the quest board, contemplating their first task. Suddenly, a woman named Glenda approaches Yuya. She expresses her desire to team up with him after witnessing his prowess with the measuring crystal. The girls attempt to pull her away, claiming she has had too much to drink. Glenda leaves but hopes to meet Yuya again. Lexia reconsiders joining the guild, feeling a need to protect Yuya from other women. Luna advises her to consider Owen, who struggles to control her. They venture into the field, with their first quest being to gather herbs. Yuya is astonished by his discernment skill, even providing him with harvesting instruction. Luna finds it challenging to avoid damaging the roots, while Lexia is simply relieved to escape the chaos. She proposes a competition with Luna to see who can collect the most valuable herbs, with the winner earning a date with Yuya. Owen reminds them not to over-harvest the area, and they all set off to begin their task, leaving Yuya alone. Yuya finds a mana healing plant, and Akatsuki attempts to assist him, but instead, he discovers an extremely poisonous plant. The girls return with their herbs, and Yuya starts examining their haul. Owen suddenly rushes in, revealing they have located the first prince and requests Yuya's assistance. Lexia and Luna are left to return to the castle while Yuya and Owen proceed. They arrive at an abandoned house where the atmosphere is eerily quiet. Owen speculates that the prince may have already been captured by earlier soldiers. As they enter, a knife instantly strikes one of the soldiers. They find the prince threatening the life of a guard, but Yuya's knight manages to save the man. Alan surrounds the prince, demanding his surrender, but the prince refuses, slashing at them. He then threatens to take his own life, believing himself worthless. Owen is at a loss, but Yuya intervenes to stop him. The prince attempts to attack Yuya but is quickly subdued. Owen thanks Yuya for his help, and they prepare to take the prince away when an explosion tears open the house. The prince is relieved to see the girl from the vial. However, she assesses the situation and declares that he has failed and is no longer needed. The prince is stunned, thinking she intended to help him become king. Instead, she reveals her true plan, to use him to ignite wars and cause as much death as possible. Realizing he has been deceived, the prince is overwhelmed. The girl prepares to finish him off, but Alan intervenes, only to be struck by an arrow. Yuya wonders about the origin of the arrows as the girl bombards them with more projectile. Alan wonders about her motives, and the girl reveals she seeks to exterminate humanity. The knights struggle against the arrows, and it becomes apparent that the girl can also predict their movements. As she prepares to deliver the final blow, Yuya uses his magic to blow away all the arrows. Alan thanks him for saving them, and the girl realizes that Yuya is the one she has been pursuing. She wishes to fight him but acknowledges she has expended too much energy and decides to retreat for now. The prince is taken into custody, but Yuya remains troubled by the girl's identity. Rieger is brought before the king, and the guards remove his mask and clothing, revealing a body scarred from numerous wounds. Lexia struggles to look at him, and we learn that she is responsible for his injuries. In a past incident, she lost control of her magic, resulting in Rieger being caught in it. He eventually went mad from the constant exposure to Lexia's magical energy, developing an insatiable urge for destruction. To suppress this urge, he inflicted more damage upon himself. He blames the king for not aiding him and isolating him from the public, as he was deemed unfit to remain the first prince. He was treated as if he didn't exist, and Yuya relates to his plight. Rieger, wanting his suffering to end, begs to be killed. Yuya intervenes, offering to help with his healing juice. Despite his initial resistance, Rieger's scars are completely healed. The onlookers are astonished, and Rieger quickly checks his reflection, unable to believe his transformation. Yuya explains that his juice is made from the legendary cure-all herb, and the king is deeply shocked, thanking Yuya for using such a rare item to heal his son. Yuya reveals that he actually grows the herb in his garden. Rieger begins to laugh, finding humor in the irony of his healing while still facing a death sentence. Lexia questions the nature of his crimes, and the king explains that Rieger made multiple attempts on his life. Lexia decides to pardon him since the crime was against her, but the king insists it is not that simple, as Rhaegar also attacked him. Lexia presses for Rhaegar's forgiveness, and the king reluctantly agrees. Thus, Rhaegar avoids his sentence. The king considers a reward, and Lexia suggests her hand in marriage, with Luna also offering to marry him. Ultimately, the king grants Rhaegar the title of Lord Knight, along with land and a mansion. Yuya returns to his room to rest, quickly falling asleep. However, he dreams of battling the mysterious girl, only to be defeated. He wakes up at school the next day, where his friends invite him to hang out. He rushes off after class, even running past Kaori as he heads home. All he can think about is the enigmatic girl. Back in the other world, Yuya trains intensely, preparing for a possible confrontation with the Vile. Knight senses danger, and they are suddenly attacked. The girl appears, and Yuya questions why she is targeting him. She reveals her quest for revenge and her belief that he might obstruct her plan. Meanwhile, Kaori visits his house, wanting to study with him. The door is open, so she enters and searches the other world for him. She hears explosions in the distance as the girl launches arrows at Yuya. Yuya charges at her with Knight and manages to land a kick, causing Knight to fall. The girl is impressed but decides she must defeat him before he grows stronger. She intensifies her assault, and Yuya notices Kaori in the vicinity. She panics, and Yuya tries to shield her, leading to an explosion. The girl prepares to finish him with her strongest attack, but Usagi appears and intercepts it. Apologizing for his lateness, Usagi explains he was investigating and reveals the girl's name is Yuri. He discloses that she is the divine archer's disciple and seeks revenge for her master's death. Her master, who always protected humans, was betrayed by them. Usagi asserts that using divine skills to destroy the world contradicts the covenant they have with the planet. Yuri retorts that she inherited the divine skills but never took on the title of a divine, so she is not bound by the covenant. They continue to battle, and Yuya uses the technique he previously used to save himself, creating an opening for Usagi to land a decisive kick. Yuri, refusing to abandon her revenge, views humanity as worthless and summons the power of the Vile, letting out a deafening scream. Yuya stands firm, unwavering, as the girl charges at Usagi. Their clash is fierce, blows exchanged with a violence that leaves Usagi staggering, the situation growing dire. Yet, in this moment of darkness, Akatsuki rushes to the fray. His holy ground skill activates, and a radiant power sweeps over Yuri, stripping her of her vile might. With her strength diminished, Yuya seizes the opportunity, landing a decisive blow. Usagi, wounded but resolute, explains that alongside the divine, there exist holy beasts who combat the vile forces, Akatsuki being one of them. He assures them that Yuri's vile powers will no longer trouble them and leaves her to Yuya's mercy. Kaori dashes forward, only to be startled by a menacing monster that appears behind her. In a swift motion, Yuya eliminates the threat with a single shot. Kaori stands in stunned silence, her shock palpable. Yuya reflects on his life in this world, his actions, and wonders if his violent deeds might frighten her. He confesses his fears of being seen as a cheater, of not being liked for who he is now. But Kaori counters his doubts, assuring him that he hasn't changed since the day she was first saved by him. Her admiration has only grown stronger, her feelings steadfast from that initial encounter. And so, the series draws to a close for now. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.